Here with me now is Senator James Lankford. He is a member of the Intelligence and Homeland Security Committees. Thank you for being here, sir. I want to get straight to this question of this potential national security breach. The Senate Armed Services Committee Chair, Roger Wicker, he said the incident, quote, raises questions as to the use of unclassified networks to discuss sensitive and classified information. He wants the Pentagon Inspector General to investigate. Do you also want an independent investigation into how all of this happened?
Yeah, it's entirely appropriate for the Inspector General to be able to look at it and to be able to ask two questions. One is, obviously, how did a reporter get into this thread in the conversation? And the second part of the conversation is, when individuals from the administration are not sitting at their desk in a classified setting on a classified computer, how do they communicate to each other? Currently, it's through encrypted apps is how that communication happens. The next question is that the right way to be able to do it? Obviously, that's the way it has been done for quite a while now while they're out on the road. But I do want to remind everybody, this is about the Houthis attacking the Americans. That's the story behind the story here, is that Houthis have attacked American ships 170 some odd times. So that for the Trump administration to push back on them is entirely appropriate thing to be able to do. And they are pushing back on them strong to be able to stop their attack on American warships.
Yeah, and certainly nobody is questioning that. The question is about the plans and whether or not it was appropriate to be discussing them on the app that we were just discussing. You said it's appropriate for the Inspector General to look at it. Are you calling on the Inspector General to do so? Because we don't believe that's happened yet.
I do believe that Roger Wicker has actually called on that Jack Reed and Roger Wicker together have gone back and said, hey, we need to have the Inspector General to be able to take a look at this, to be able to examine that. I do. I think it's entirely appropriate. Again, there's two questions. One is, how did a reporter get in this conversation? And the second one is, how do members of the administration talk to each other when they're on the road on things that are clearly timely? The launch of an American strike on the Houthis is a timely issue. They can't all go to their desk, sit in a skiff to be able to have that dialogue. Where and how do they have that dialogue? What's the most secure way to do it?
The National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, said it was a mistake to use Signal. He has taken responsibility. The Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, has not, even though he's the one who shared the specific information about the timing and aircraft being used in this strike. Should he take responsibility as well, Senator?
I think he just joined into an encrypted app. I don't see it as much of an issue because, again, they all believe that this was a closed circle of conversation. He's trying to give each other a heads up of what's about to happen, as we had given a heads up to our foreign partners overseas as well, to let them know what was about to happen as well. So this is normal communication on it. What's not normal is having a reporter in the middle of it.
You've no doubts about Secretary Hegseth's leadership?
No, I don't see this as an issue of leadership, nor I've heard some people calling for his resignation. I think that's way overkill in this. He is stepping in and has actually led a very successful first attack here on somebody that had attacked the United States over and over again during the Biden administration and had very limited response. Pete Hegseth has actually organized and coordinated an initial response to push back and make them stop.
I want to turn to the economy. President Trump announced a 25% tariff on all foreign-made cars and auto parts. He told NBC News he couldn't care less if car makers raise their prices. And he said, quote, I hope they raise their prices because if they do, people are going to buy American-made cars. You know that's not how it works. Parts of foreign cars are made here. Parts of American cars are made abroad. It's all connected. Do you support these auto tariffs, even if it means Americans will pay more?
Yeah, I don't think Americans want to pay more for their automobiles. And right now, North America actually cooperates together to be able to build many of America's cars. You'll have a Ford Bronco, for instance, cross back and forth between Mexico and the United States several times as far as parts and manufacturing there. So Canada, the United States, and Mexico have cooperated together. The USMCA that President Trump negotiated has been a key part of longstanding supply chain that's actually been developed among North America. A lot of manufacturers, BMW and others that are foreign manufacturers, Toyota, Nissan, we can go on and on, have come to the United States to actually build vehicles here. That's the key goal of this that I hear from President Trump is we want more manufacturing in the United States, and we want to encourage those folks that are around the world that plan to sell Americans cars, come here to be able to build them. That helps American jobs.
So you're
and it
okay
also
with
will
these
bring
tariffs?
prices down as well. I'm okay with the start of the negotiations on this. I think the
Well,
push
it
is a
sounds like they're
long-term
not
push on this. This is
negotiations. He's going to put them into effect starting this week.
He is going to put them in effect starting this week, as he's done in several other tariffs, that he's put it out there and said that's going to start this day. And then when Mexico came to the table, or when Canada came to the table, or when Japan came to the table, they immediately came back down and said, all right, let's start talking about how we're going to negotiate this. Vietnam is already talking about changing their tariff barriers. Multiple other countries are doing that. So this is a negotiation. With President Trump, it's all a negotiation to see what are we going to do long term. I feel like in some ways in the economy, this is kind of like a kitchen remodel or a bath remodel. There's a bit of a mess at the beginning, but everybody has a long-term look of where we're headed. It's going to be noisy for a little while, but we all know where we're headed, trying to reduce the prices for Americans and increase jobs.
I want to turn to the arrest of Rumeysa Öztürk. She is a Turkish PhD student at Tufts University. The video that we have appears to show men in plain clothes grabbing and handcuffing her, taking her away in a van. Now, the Trump administration claims that she engaged in activities in support of Hamas. They're apparently referring to an op-ed she wrote criticizing Tufts' response to Gaza protests. You're on the Intelligence Committee. Have you seen any evidence that she took action to support Hamas? And just more broadly, are you comfortable with the government arresting and trying to deport someone who is here legally and who, as of right now, has not been charged with a crime?
So a couple things on that. No, we've not gone through the intelligence, at least I've not gone through the intelligence report specifically in that case. But I would tell you there is a requirement that if you're a student or under a legal visa here in the United States and you're supporting a terror organization, you can be removed from the United States. That is current federal law. That has been used in the past and should be used again. We should not have individuals that are here under a tourist visa, student visa, work visa that actually come and then abuse that system to be able to undermine the United States. And so this is not a suppression of free speech. This is saying Americans have the right to free speech. But if you're a foreigner coming into our country and you're coming to undermine our country, whether it's in support of terrorism or not, right, that should be something we do not allow.
And I totally understand the difference. My question is, do you need to see the evidence of what you just discussed, that she actually supported a terrorist organization? And are you okay with her not being charged with a crime as she's being held in a prison?
Well, she's being held initially to be able to say this is the charge that's out there. So that's pretty normal for anyone that is then arrested or then is picked up and detained. When you're not legally present in the United States or when you're under a visa in the United States and there's an accusation, you are picked up and to be able to be held at that point to say we have some real questions here on behavior and what's happening. As we saw during the Biden administration, there were multiple individuals that were then picked up, charged, and then released, and then they later committed crimes. What the Trump administration is trying to do is make sure that doesn't happen, or they don't have something that actually inspires additional terrorism acts in the United States. So she should have due process. She's under a legal visa. That's entirely appropriate.
Okay, I think they took her visa away. But I do want to move on to measles, because the outbreak is escalating. It was in Texas. Now it has spread to your state, as you know, Oklahoma. The HHS Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., repeatedly downplayed the outbreak. He also just pushed out the FDA's top vaccine safety official. And unlike you, he has resisted telling people to get vaccinated against the measles. Are you comfortable with all of this?
Well, I'm comfortable with his testimony when he actually went through the nomination process. He supported the measles vaccine, and he talked about the entire childhood schedule of vaccines and encouraged that and said that is not something that HHS is going to discourage families from doing. This particular outbreak in Texas is concerning. We've got 400 people now in Texas that now have measles. This broke out in a religious community that they're opposed to any vaccines based on religious grounds. That's a little more tricky in our system. We're obviously not going to push people to be able to violate their faith. But as you mentioned, I've been vaccinated for measles. My family has been. I hope one day my grandchildren are. I'm going to continue to be able to tell people this is a great life-saving vaccine, and it really protects children.
And just real quick, just beyond the measles, what Peter Marks, the FDA official I was talking about, who resigned, said is it has become clear that truth and transparency are not desired by the secretary, but he wants to be subservient to the confirmation of misinformation and lies. That's some pretty strong stuff. You're not concerned about it?
It is strong. Yeah, that I am concerned. I'm concerned twofold. One is if he's making that strong of a statement coming out on it, it's pretty clear why RFK Jr. actually released him and said, hey, there's a real difference of opinion of where things will go on this. But there's a lot of other scientists that are still there. There are other scientists that are joining in. RFK Jr. has been clear. He supports vaccines, and especially the childhood schedule on this. The president has been very clear on his support of vaccines. So I don't see the administration pushing to be able to remove this in any means at all. And I've been clear, multiple other folks have been clear as well, and health professionals in Texas have also been clear that the measles vaccine does protect children's lives, and it's really important that people take that because an infant cannot have that vaccine, so an infant is very exposed to measles if an outbreak actually occurs.
Senator James Lankford, thank you so much for being here this morning. I appreciate it.
You bet. Glad to be able to do it.